Welcome to my channel, Most Worth Coins WC, where history lives in your hands. If you're passionate about rare coins, vintage currency, and the fascinating stories behind them, you're in the right place. Don't forget to watch the full video, share it with your fellow collectors, and subscribe to stay updated with more valuable content every week. So, let's get started. The 1953 United States 1-cent coin, widely known as the Lincoln Wheat cent or Wheat penny, stands as an important relic of mid-20th century American coinage, carrying with it layers of historical, cultural, and numismatic significance. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln cent was the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person instead of allegorical figures like Liberty. By 1953, the design was well established in the minds of Americans, with Victor David Brenner's bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the stylized wheat stalks framing the denomination on the reverse. The obverse design presents a right-facing bust of President Lincoln with strong features such as his beard, deep cheek lines, and furrowed brow, all intended to capture not only his likeness, but also his solemn strength as the 16th President of the United States. Above Lincoln's portrait arcs the national motto, "In God We Trust," first appearing on coins during the Civil War era and by the 20th century cemented as a powerful declaration of American religious identity and moral direction. To the left of Lincoln, in bold yet compact capital letters, is the word liberty, symbolizing the founding principle upon which the United States was built. To the right of the portrait appears the date 1953, denoting the year of minting, sometimes accompanied by a mint mark beneath it, such as D for Denver or S for San Francisco, while coins without a mark were struck in Philadelphia. Each mint mark variation offers its own subtle differences in rarity and value, giving collectors different points of interest within the same issue year. The reverse design, also by Brenner, carries a completely different character, featuring a simple agricultural motif. At its center appears the denomination, written as 1 cent in bold lettering, reminding the holder of the coin's face value. Directly below it, the legend United States of America is inscribed, grounding the coin in its national identity. Flanking both sides are gracefully curved stalks of Durham wheat, each arching upward to frame the denomination. This element gives the coin its popular name, the Wheat cent or Wheat penny, symbolizing prosperity, growth, and America's agricultural backbone. At the very top, the Latin phrase a pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, completes the design, emphasizing the union of states forming a single nation, a theme especially poignant in the years following World War II as the United States asserted itself on the world stage. From a historical perspective, the 1953 cent was minted during the presidency of Dwight D. Eisenhower at a time when the United States was navigating the complexities of the post-war era, the Korean War armistice, and the early years of the Cold War. Coins such as this circulated widely in daily commerce, passing through countless hands at diners, movie theaters, corner shops, and gasoline stations, often being used in jukeboxes or candy machines, making them witnesses to the small details of everyday American life. The cent itself was struck from a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the same composition used for most wheat cents from 1909 through 1962, giving the coins a distinct reddish-brown or darker patina over time depending on storage conditions. Freshly struck, the coin would shine with a bright red copper hue, but as it circulated, it would mellow into shades of brown or red-brown, characteristics that today heavily influence a coin's collectible grade and value. Collectors often classify these colorations as RD, red, RB, red-brown, or BN, brown, which can make significant differences in market price even among coins of the same date and mint. In terms of mintages, the 1953 Lincoln cent was produced in substantial numbers across 3 major mints. The Philadelphia Mint, which struck coins without a mint mark, produced well over 256 million cents that year, making the Philadelphia issue the most common. The Denver Mint, identified by a small d below the date, contributed a massive output of over 700 million coins, making it the largest mintage of the three. The San Francisco Mint, bearing the S Mint mark, struck just under 182 million pieces, a smaller number relative to the others, but still abundant enough that the coin is not considered rare in circulated condition. Despite these high production numbers, fully read, uncirculated examples, particularly from San Francisco, can command significant premiums among collectors due to their relative scarcity and striking brilliance. Proof cents, however, were not. Minted in 1953, as proof coinage had been temporarily suspended by the mint during the early 1950s and did not resume until 1955, making high-grade circulation strikes the only option for collectors seeking near-perfect 1953 examples. The legacy of the 1953 Wheat cent lies not just in its numbers, but in its place within the broader series. The Wheat reverse design, used from 1909 until 1958, represents a long era of American coinage, bridging two world wars, the Great Depression, and the rise of the United States as a global superpower. Every cent from this series holds echoes of its time, and the 1953 issue specifically embodies the stable prosperity of mid-century America as the nation entered a period of growth and optimism. For collectors today, the 1953 cent is often a necessary piece when building a complete set of Lincoln Wheat cents, which spans 50 years and is among the most popular series in American numismatics. While common in worn, circulated condition, the coin becomes increasingly desirable as its state of preservation improves, with mint state and fully read examples offering both historical charm and investment potential. Thus, the 1953 United States 1 cent Wheat penny is more than just a tiny copper coin. It represents artistry in design, a reflection of national values such as liberty, unity, and trust in God, and a tangible artifact of a transformative period in American history. Though its face value was just 1 cent, its enduring significance continues to shine in collections and history books alike, reminding us that even the smallest denominations can carry the weight of a nation's story. The 1945 United States 1 cent coin, more commonly known as the Lincoln Wheat cent or Wheat penny, occupies a fascinating place in the history of American coinage, blending design artistry with the cultural backdrop of the Second World War's final year. First introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the series remained unchanged in its essential features through the 1940s. Yet each year and mint tells its own story through the details of production, circulation, and preservation. On the obverse of the 1945 cent, the viewer is immediately drawn to the dignified right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, sculpted by Victor David Brenner. This portrait, which has become one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage, emphasizes Lincoln's beard, solemn gaze, and distinct profile, presenting him as a symbol of unity, resilience, and freedom. Arched across the top of the coin is the national motto, "In God We Trust," first appearing on U.S. coinage during the Civil War era and by the mid-20th century serving as a deeply embedded expression of national faith and resolve. To Lincoln's left, in small block letters, is the word liberty, a reminder of the principle upon which the nation was founded, a word particularly resonant in 1945 when American soldiers were returning from the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. To the right of Lincoln, the date 1945 is engraved, denoting the year of mintage. Beneath this date may appear a small mint mark, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no mark for Philadelphia, each distinguishing the origin of the coin. The obverse is both functional and symbolic, functional as a legal tender, symbolic as a vessel of history, marking a year that brought both triumph and tragedy for the nation. The reverse design of the 1945 cent, also by Brenner, continues the simple agricultural motif that defined the Wheat penny series from 1909 through 1958. Dominating the center are the words 1 cent, bold and unambiguous, reminding users of the coin's role in everyday transactions. Just beneath, the inscription, United States of America, asserts the national identity of the coin. Framing these inscriptions are two gently arching stalks of durum wheat, symbolic of abundance, prosperity, and the agricultural foundations of the American economy. This wheat motif earned the coin its popular nickname, Wheat penny, which endures to this day among collectors. Above the inscriptions, the traditional Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, conveys the unity of the states into a single nation. Taken together, these design elements balance practicality and symbolism, delivering a coin that was both a medium of exchange and a cultural emblem. Compositionally, the 1945 Wheat cent was struck in an alloy of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, continuing the pre-war formula that had been briefly interrupted in 1943 when cents were struck in zinc-coated steel due to copper shortages during the height of wartime production. By 1944, copper had returned to coinage, though in practice, much of the copper used for 1944 and 1945 cents came from recycled shell casings collected during the war. This fact makes the 1945 cent especially symbolic. The very metal that once served in weaponry was melted down, repurposed, and reissued into coinage that circulated in the post-war American economy. Thus, each 1945 cent embodies both the memory of wartime sacrifice and the promise of peace, literally forged from the remnants of war. Freshly minted, the coin shone with a bright red copper luster, but circulation and time have shifted most examples to darker red-brown or brown tones. Today, collectors grade them based on these color designations: RD for red, RB for red-brown, and BN for brown, along with wear levels ranging from well-worn to mint state. Mintages for the 1945 cent were vast, reflecting America's growing economy at the close of the war. The Philadelphia Mint, producing coins without a mint mark, struck over 1 billion cents, making the 1945 Philadelphia Wheat cent one of the most common of the entire series. The Denver Mint, with the D mark, added nearly 267 million coins, while the San Francisco Mint, marked S, contributed around 181 million. These immense totals ensure that 1945 Wheat cents are relatively common in circulated condition, still occasionally surfacing in pocket change decades after their minting. However, within this abundance lies scarcity in higher states of preservation. Brilliant uncirculated coins with full red luster are considerably more desirable, and sharply struck examples with minimal contact marks often achieve premium valuations. In the numismatic market, the historical context of 1945 enhances the appeal of this coin far beyond its face value. It was a year of monumental events. Germany surrendered in May, ending the war in Europe, and Japan surrendered in August, bringing the Second World War to a close after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On the home front, the U.S. economy began its transition from wartime to peacetime production, with millions of servicemen returning to civilian life. A coin minted in 1945 was, quite literally, carried in the pockets of Americans living through this pivotal transition. It may have been spent on a bus ticket, a loaf of bread, or perhaps a soda at a corner shop while the nation celebrated victory. Each coin, though small, carried with it a silent witness to a society in motion, moving from war to peace, from sacrifice to growth. Within the broader Lincoln Cent series, the 1945 issue serves as a reminder of the durability and symbolism of the Wheat cent design. The wheat ears on the reverse would only remain until 1958, when they were replaced by the Lincoln Memorial in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Thus, the 1945 cent represents the closing chapters of the Wheat design's story, connecting collectors to nearly half a century of American life. For collectors today, the 1945 Wheat penny is generally accessible in circulated grades, but can become a challenge in pristine, fully red mint condition, particularly from the San Francisco Mint. Its affordability makes it a popular entry point. For new collectors, while its historical context and occasional high-grade rarities make it a meaningful piece for advanced collections. Ultimately, the 1945 United States 1-cent coin is far more than a token of copper. It is a microcosm of its time, combining artistic representation, practical use, and historical symbolism. Through Lincoln's steadfast visage, the national mottos of faith and unity, and the humble wheat stalks representing prosperity, the coin reflects the resilience of a nation emerging from the greatest conflict in human history. Though its face value was only 1 cent, the meaning carried within the 1945 Wheat penny far outweighs its denomination, making it a cherished piece for collectors, historians, and anyone interested in the legacy of America during the mid-20th century. The 1944 United States 1-cent coin, commonly referred to as the Lincoln Wheat cent or Wheat penny, stands as one of the most significant and widely recognized coins of mid-20th century American numismatics. Struck during the final years of the Second World War, it holds not only numismatic appeal, but also deep symbolic and historical value. Its design, composition, and place in circulation are each tied to the events and conditions of the 1940s, making the 1944 cent far more than just a low-denomination coin. It is a tangible reminder of resilience, victory, and transition in American life. On the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, the coin proudly features a right-facing portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, the nation's 16th president, whose legacy as the great emancipator and unifier remains etched in American consciousness. His profile captures his beard, furrowed brow, and contemplative expression, symbolizing strength and humility. Across the top arcs the motto, "In God We Trust," a powerful declaration of the American people's reliance on faith and moral guidance, especially meaningful in 1944 when the nation was still at war. To Lincoln's left appears the word liberty, reinforcing one of the central ideals of the United States, while to the right is the date 1944. Below the date, depending on the mint of origin, may appear a small mint mark, D. For Denver, S for San Francisco, or no mark for Philadelphia. Each mint mark variation is sought after by collectors, not only as a way of tracing the coin's origin, but also because survival rates, striking quality, and availability differ between the mints. The reverse design, also created by Brenner, is as iconic as the obverse. At its center, in bold capital letters, appears 1 cent, immediately followed by United States of America beneath it, affirming both the denomination and national identity. Framing these inscriptions on either side are two stylized stalks of Durham wheat, arching gracefully upward, each symbolic of prosperity, agriculture, and nourishment, reflecting the agrarian roots that continued to underpin the U.S. economy during this period. The wheat stalks are what lend this series the popular nickname Wheat penny, still used affectionately by collectors. At the top of the reverse is the Latin phrase a pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, representing the unity of states and peoples in a nation that was fighting across two theaters of war. In 1944, such unity was not abstract. It was lived daily by families contributing to the war effort on the home front, by soldiers overseas, and by a society determined to endure sacrifice in order to achieve victory. The composition of the 1944 Lincoln cent is particularly noteworthy. Prior to 1943, cents were made from a bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. However, in 1943, the U.S. Mint struck cents in zinc-coated steel due to wartime shortages of copper, which was desperately needed for shell casings, wiring, and other war materials. These 1943 steel cents were short-lived, as they corroded easily and were often mistaken for dimes. In 1944, the mint returned to a copper-based composition, but with an important difference. Most of the copper used came from recycled shell casings collected after battles. Thus, the 1944 cent was literally forged from the remnants of war, spent ammunition that had been resmelted and given a second life as coinage. This fact imbues the 1944 cent with powerful symbolism, transforming instruments of destruction into small, everyday instruments of commerce. Its composition remained 95% copper and 5% zinc, though without tin, since wartime rationing limited the availability of non-essential metals. When freshly minted, these coins gleamed with a reddish hue, but as they circulated, they toned into shades of red-brown or brown, qualities that today influence their desirability and value in the collector market. Production of the 1944 cent was massive, reflecting the mint's return to copper coinage and the booming demand for currency during the war. The Philadelphia Mint, which used no mint mark, struck over 1.4 billion cents, one of the largest mintages of the entire Wheat cent series. The Denver Mint added approximately 430 million coins, while the San Francisco Mint contributed around 282 million. Together, these figures mean that more than 2 billion 1944 cents were produced, making them among the most common Wheat cents ever struck. This high output ensures that 1944 cents are widely available in circulated condition even today, often found in collections, coin jars, or inherited accumulations. Yet, despite their abundance, their historical context and the story of their composition elevate them beyond ordinary common coins. In higher grades, particularly mint state examples with original red luster, the 1944 Wheat cent takes on a special place of pride in Lincoln cent collections. Historically, the year 1944 was a turning point in the Second World War. On Dadia, June 6th, American and Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy in the D-Day invasion, a decisive step toward the liberation of Europe from Nazi occupation. In the Pacific, U.S. forces were engaged in fierce island-hopping campaigns, pushing steadily toward Japan. On the home front, rationing of food, gasoline, and materials continued, while factories worked around the clock to supply both the military and civilians. Against this backdrop, the 1944 cent circulated in every corner of American life. It may have been used to buy a newspaper reporting Allied advances, dropped into a church offering plate, spent on a cup of coffee at a diner, or given as change in a corner grocery store. Each coin silently accompanied the daily lives of Americans, who were united by the urgency of war and the anticipation of peace. In the larger arc of the Lincoln Wheat series, which ran from 1909 to 1958, the 1944 issue is significant not only for its historical associations, but also for its role in restoring copper after the experiment of the steel cent. Collectors recognize it as a milestone within the series, bridging the brief disruption of 1943 and the return to tradition in 1944. For numismatists, it represents a coin that is both widely accessible and symbolically powerful. Circulated examples can be obtained with ease, while uncirculated red gems demand careful searching and are treasured by advanced collectors. High-grade specimens certified by grading services such as PCGS or NGC often achieve premium values, particularly if they retain vibrant red luster and sharp strike details. Even though billions were minted, the survival of pristine examples is far rarer, making them highly collectible. Ultimately, the 1944 United States 1-cent wheat penny is more than a piece of copper. It embodies a nation in wartime, transforming weapons into money, carrying inscriptions of liberty, trust, and unity, and circulating during one of the most defining years of the 20th century. It stands as a coin of hope, resilience, and transition, witness to both the sacrifices and triumphs of the American people. Though its face value was only 1 cent, its cultural, historical, and symbolic worth makes it one of the most meaningful coins of the Lincoln cent series, treasured by collectors and historians alike.